Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Manual Gearbox, and we're back with Assetto Corsa. This time we're looking at the Lotus 25, one of the most influential cars in motorsports history. Believe it or not, when the first time I saw this car back in the late 1980s, I think it was in a book or in a magazine, I thought it was a Formula 3 car. Because even a Formula Ford, because of the size and the narrowness of its tires. And I thought, yes, it has to be a Formula 3 car. But, reading the description and everything, it turns out it's actually a Formula 1 car. And this is the car that propelled Jimmy Clark into legendary status. The main reason why this car is so influential is because it is the first monocoque chassis ever built in motorsports. In fact, in automotive history ever. So every single car that you see right now, the modern race cars, even modern street cars, are monocoque designs. And this is just, it was so advanced for its time. I mean, this car, because of it's a fully stressed monocoque design, the chassis doesn't flex when cornering. And because it doesn't flex, it keeps more rubber on the pavement and does more grip and increases cornering speed. Whereas with the previous space frame or tubular frame chassis, they would flex, and obviously they would lose grip around a corner. So even though the car itself the chassis itself was very advanced for its time, the engine was not. In fact, the Coventry Climax 1.5 liter V8 that you see on the rear of the car, that engine was extremely unreliable. In fact, the first time that this car participated in a Formula 1 race was in Zandvoort in 1962. And it qualified third with Jim Clark behind the wheel. And it wasn't long before he took the lead of the race, and then he developed a gap of almost 50 seconds ahead of everybody else. But with 10 laps before the end of the race, the clutch became stuck, and Jimmy couldn't change gears, and he had to go into the pits. And by the time he came out again, it was last, and that's where he stayed until the end of the race. So yeah, it wasn't exactly the best start, starting the career of this race car. But the next year, the teething problems with the engine were fixed, and the car just dominated. I think it won like 7 races out of 10 that season in 1963, and of course that was the first year that Jim Clark won his first championship. So yeah, this is one of the most influential race cars in motorsports history, believe it or not. And we are taking this guy out on Brands Hatch today for a 5-lap race. We're racing against the AI. So yeah, this is going to be fun. So I'll see you guys on the racetrack. Okay, we're in Brands Hatch, starting 5th on the grid. Good start, good start. This car has a bit of a problem with the engine braking. As soon as you get off the throttle, the rear tires just want to lock up, like we're happening right here. So you got to be very careful coming off the throttle. Also, you got to be very careful getting back on the throttle as well, because the tires, cross-ply tires. There we go. Oh, come on. Okay, so we're in first place. Okay, easy does it, boy. Oh, come on. Oh, this car is quite a handful. Get it around the racetrack, especially a racetrack like Brands Hatch, where it can be kind of unforgiving. Okay, so this does it for the first lap. So far, so good. Got to give it quite a sizable blip there to prevent the rear tires from locking up the throttle lift. Oh. That does it for first place. Well, the AI tends to be quite passive, so it tends to hold back as soon as it sees you going into trouble. Okay, so far so good. The engine sounds a little bit like my ex Honda 400 VFR. I used to own one back in the late 2000s, about 10 years ago. It was a B4 400 cc's. Sounds a little bit like this one. This is a Climax V8 1.5 liter engine, producing around 195 horsepower. Extremely unreliable, especially in 1962 when the car was introduced. Definitely did not do any justice for the chassis, the advanced chassis, the monocoque. That was in 1962, and back the next year, 1963, you know, with a better engine and everything, Jim Clark just dominated. It won, I think, 7 races out of 10, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, the guys behind me are starting to catch up. So we still got 2 more laps to go. It's a 5-lap race. I'm not gonna do any pit stops or tire changing, refueling. You know, handling wise, this car tends to handle a little bit similar to the Maserati 250F, in that it tends to understeer and oversteer. That was a big mistake right there. But of course the AI rarely capitalizes on your mistakes, so we're still good. As I was saying earlier, the handling is very similar to the Maserati 250, in that you have to use the throttle to steer the car. I said earlier, you gotta give it quite a sizable blip to prevent the rear tires from locking up under engine braking. Especially going around a corner like Graham Hill. Here, see what I'm talking about? That's throttle lift off, throttle lift oversteer. That's what they call it. Okay, so we're on the final lap. Hopefully everything will be okay. Come on, guy. Last few corners. All right. Not bad. Not bad at all. So yeah, that's 5 laps around Brands Hatch. It's quite a handful, this guy. The Coventry Climax, that's the engine of the Lotus 25 that he used back in 1962 and 1963. Extremely unreliable, but hey, you know, you gotta start somewhere. So yeah, as always, I'm going to include the last lap of the race, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.